Cambodia, officially the Kingdom of Cambodia, is a country in mainland Southeast Asia. Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. Please smash the subscribe button and like the video. Cambodia, officially the Kingdom of Cambodia, is a country in mainland Southeast Asia. It borders Thailand to the northwest, Laos to the north, Vietnam to the east, and has a coastline along the Gulf of Thailand on the southwest. It spans an area of 181,035 square kilometers, 69,898 square miles, and has a population of about 17 million. Its capital and most populous city is Phnom Penh. In 802 AD, Jayavarman II declared himself king, uniting the warring Khmer princes of Chenla under the name Cambodia. This marked the beginning of the Khmer Empire. The Indianized kingdom facilitated the spread of first Hinduism and then Buddhism to Southeast Asia, and undertook religious infrastructural projects throughout the region. In the 15th century, it began a decline in power, the post-Angkor period, until in 1863, it became the French protectorate of Cambodia. After the Japanese occupation of Cambodia during the Second World War, it gained independence in 1953. The Vietnam War extended into the country in 1965 via the Ho Chi Minh and Sihanouk trails. A 1970 coup installed the U.S.-aligned Khmer Republic, which was overthrown by the Khmer Rouge in 1975. The Khmer Rouge ruled the country and carried out the Cambodian genocide from 1975 until 1979, when they were ousted in the Cambodian-Vietnamese War. The Vietnamese-occupied People's Republic of Kampuchea became the de facto government. Following the 1991 Paris Peace Accords, which formally ended the war with Vietnam, Cambodia was governed by a United Nations mission, 1992 to 93. The UN withdrew after the 1993 Cambodian general election, decided by around 90% of registered voters. The 1997 coup d'etat consolidated power under Prime Minister Hun Sen and the Cambodian People's Party, CPP. While constitutionally a multi-party state, CPP dominates the political system and dissolved its main opposition party in 2017, making it a de facto one-party state. The UN now designates it a least developed country. Cambodia is a member of the United Nations, ASEAN, the RCEP, the East Asia Summit, the WTO, the Non-Aligned Movement and La Francophonie, and a dialogue partner of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Agriculture remains the dominant economic sector, with growth in textiles, construction, garments, and tourism, leading to increased foreign investment and international trade. It is among the most vulnerable countries to climate change. The Kingdom of Cambodia is the official English name of the country. The English Cambodia is an anglicization of the French Cambodge, which in turn is the French transliteration of the Khmer, Kampuchea, pronounced Kampuchea. Kampuchea is the shortened alternative to the country's official name in Khmer, Preah Rea Kianakakar Kampuchea, pronounced Preah Richina Kak Kampuchea. The Khmer endonym Kampuchea derives from the Sanskrit name Kambodjadesha, composed of Desha, land of or country of, and Cambodia, referring to the descendants of Kambu, a legendary Indian sage from the ancient Indian Kingdom of Cambodia. The term Cambodia was already in use in Europe as early as 1524, since Antonio Pigafetta cites it in his work Relazione del primo viaggio intorno al mondo, 1524 to 1525, as Cambodia. Scholar George Coedes refers to a 10th century inscription of a Cambodian dynastic legend, in which the hermit Kambu Swayambhuva and the celestial nymph Mera unite and establish the Cambodian solar royal dynasty, Kambu Mera, that begins with the Chenla ruler Shrutavarman and his son Shresthavarman. Coedes suggests that the Kambu Swayambhuva legend has its origins in southern India, as a version of the Kanchi Pallava dynasty creation myth. Colloquially, Cambodians refer to their country as either Shrok Khmer, pronounced Shrok Khmer, meaning land of the Khmers, or the slightly more formal Prate Kampuchea, pronounced Prate Kampuchea, country of Kampuchea. The name Cambodia is used most often in the Western world, while Kampuchea is more widely used in the Eastern world. There exists evidence for a Pleistocene human occupation of what later is Cambodia, which includes quartz and quartzite pebble tools found in terraces along the Mekong River, in Stung Treng and Kreti provinces, and in Kampot province. Some archaeological evidence shows communities of hunter-gatherers inhabited the region during the Holocene. The most ancient archaeological discovery, site in Cambodia, is considered to be the cave of Lang Spain, which belongs to the Hoabinhian period. Excavations in its lower layers produced a series of radiocarbon dates around 6000 BC. Upper layers in the same site gave evidence of transition to Neolithic, containing the earliest dated earthenware ceramics in Cambodia. Archaeological records for the period between the Holocene and Iron Age remain equally limited. An event in prehistory was the penetration of the first rice farmers from the north, which began in the 3rd millennium BC. Prehistoric evidence are the circular earthworks discovered in the red soils near Mamat and in the adjacent region of Vietnam in the latter 1950s. Their function and age are still debated, and some of them possibly date from the 2nd millennium BC. Other prehistoric sites of somewhat uncertain date are Semarang Sen, not far from the ancient capital of Udong, where the first investigations began in 1875, and Phum Sne in the northern province of Banteay Menchi. Iron was worked by about 500 BC, with supporting evidence coming from the Korat Plateau, in what later is Thailand. In Cambodia, some Iron Age settlements were found beneath Bakse Cham Krong and other Angkorian temples, while circular earthworks were discovered at the site of Lavea, kilometers northwest of Angkor. Burials testified to improvement of food availability and trade, and the existence of a social structure and labor organization. Kinds of glass beads recovered from sites, such as the Phum Sne site in the northwest and the Prohir site in the southeast, suggest that there were two main trading networks at the time. The two networks were separated by time and space, which indicate that there was a shift from one network to the other at about the 2nd to 4th century AD, probably due to changes in socio-political powers. During the 3rd, 4th, and 5th centuries, the Indianized states of Funan and its successor, Chenla, coalesced in what later is Cambodia and southwestern Vietnam. For more than 2,000 years, what was to become Cambodia absorbed influences from India, passing them on to other Southeast Asian civilizations that later became Thailand and Laos. The Khmer Empire grew out of the remnants of Chenla, becoming firmly established in 802 when Jayavarman II reigned circa 790 c. 835 declared independence from Java and proclaimed themselves a Devaraja. They and their followers instituted the cult of the God King and began a series of conquests that formed an empire which flourished in the area from the 9th to the 15th centuries. During the rule of Jayavarman VIII, the Angkor Empire was attacked by the Mongol army of Kublai Khan. The king was able to buy peace. Around the 13th century, Theravada missionaries from Sri Lanka reintroduced Theravada Buddhism to Southeast Asia, having sent missionaries previously in the 1190s. The religion spread and eventually displaced Hinduism and Mahayana Buddhism as the popular religion of Angkor. It was not the official state religion until 1295, when Indravarman III took power. The Khmer Empire was Southeast Asia's largest empire during the 12th century. The empire's center of power was Angkor, where a series of capitals were constructed during the empire's zenith. In 2007, an international team of researchers, using satellite photographs and other modern techniques, concluded that Angkor had been the largest pre-industrial city in the world, with an urban sprawl of 2,980 square kilometers, 1,151 square miles. The city could have supported a population of up to 1 million people. After a series of wars with neighboring kingdoms, Angkor was sacked by the Ayutthaya kingdom and abandoned in 1432 because of ecological failure and infrastructure breakdown. The Hill tribe people were hunted incessantly and carried off as slaves by the Siamese, Thai, the Annamites, Vietnamese, and the Cambodians. Formerly part of the Khmer Empire, the Mekong Delta had been controlled by the Vietnamese since 1698-51, with King Che Chetha II granting the Vietnamese permission to settle in the area decades before. French colonization, coronation of Norodom Sihanouk in 1941. In 1863, King Norodom signed a treaty of protection with France. Cambodia continued as a protectorate of France from 1867 to 1953, administered as part of the colony of French Indochina, while occupied by the Japanese Empire from 1941 to 1945, and simultaneously existing as the puppet state of Kingdom of Cambodia in 1945. Between 1945, 1,874, and 1,962, the total population increased from about 946,000 to 5.7 million. After King Noroddom's death in 1904, France manipulated the choice of king, and Sisowath, Noroddom's brother, was placed on the throne. The throne became vacant in 1941 with the death of Monavong, Sisowath's son, and France passed over Monavong's son, Monarith, feeling he was too independently minded. Instead, Norodom Sihanouk, a maternal grandson of King Sisowath, was enthroned. The French thought young Sihanouk would be easy to control. Under the reign of King Norodom Sihanouk, Cambodia gained independence from France on the 9th of November, 1953. Kingdom of Cambodia, 1953 to 1970. In 1955, Sihanouk abdicated in favor of his father to participate in politics and was elected prime minister. Upon his father's death in 1960, Sihanouk again became head of state, taking the title of prince. As the Vietnam War progressed, Sihanouk adopted an official policy of neutrality in the Cold War. Sihanouk allowed the Vietnamese communists to use Cambodia as a sanctuary and a supply route for their arms and other aid to their armed forces fighting in South Vietnam. In December 1967, Washington Post journalist Stanley Carnow was told by Sihanouk that if the U.S. wanted to bomb the Vietnamese communist sanctuaries, he would not object unless Cambodians were killed. The same message was conveyed to U.S. President Johnson's emissary, Chester Bowles, in January 1968. In public, Sihanouk refuted the right of the U.S. to use airstrikes in Cambodia, and on 26 March he said, "These criminal attacks must immediately and definitively stop." On 28 March, a press conference was held and Sihanouk appealed to the international media. "I appeal to you to publicize abroad this very clear stand of Cambodia. That is, I will, in any case, oppose all bombings on Cambodian territory under whatever pretext." Nevertheless, the public pleas of Sihanouk were ignored, and the bombing continued. Khmer Republic, 1970 to 1975. While visiting Beijing in 1970, Sihanouk was ousted by a military coup led by Prime Minister General Lon Nol and Prince Sisowath Sirik Matak. Once the coup was completed, the new regime, which demanded that the Vietnamese communists leave Cambodia, gained the political support of the United States. The North Vietnamese and Viet Cong forces, desperate to retain their sanctuaries and supply lines from North Vietnam, launched armed attacks on the new government. The king urged his followers to help in overthrowing this government, hastening the onset of civil war. Khmer Rouge rebels began using him to gain support. From 1970 until 1972, the Cambodian conflict was largely between the government and army of Cambodia and the armed forces of North Vietnam. As they gained control of Cambodian territory, the Vietnamese communists imposed a new political infrastructure, which was eventually dominated by the Cambodian communists, now referred to as the Khmer Rouge. Documents uncovered from the Soviet archives after 1991 reveal that the North Vietnamese attempt to overrun Cambodia in 1970 was launched at the explicit request of the Khmer Rouge and negotiated by Pol Pot's then second-in-command, Nguyen Chea. NVA units overran Cambodian army positions, while the Communist Party of Kampuchea, CPK, expanded their attacks on lines of communication. In response to the North Vietnamese invasion, U.S. President Richard Nixon announced that U.S. and South Vietnamese ground forces had entered Cambodia in a campaign aimed at destroying NVA base areas in Cambodia. See Cambodian incursion. On New Year's Day 1975, Communist troops launched an offensive which, in 117 days, led to the collapse of the Khmer Republic. Simultaneous attacks around the perimeter of Phnom Penh pinned down Republican forces, while other CPK units overran fire bases controlling the vital lower Mekong resupply route. A U.S.-funded airlift of ammunition and rice ended when Congress refused additional aid for Cambodia. The Lon Nol government in Phnom Penh surrendered on 17 April 1975. 5 days after the U.S. mission evacuated Cambodia. Khmer Rouge regime, 1975-1978. Estimates as to how many people were killed by the Khmer Rouge regime range from approximately 1 to 3 million. A cited figure is 2 million, about a quarter of the population. This era gave rise to the term killing fields, and the prison Tuol Sleng became known for its history of mass killing. Hundreds of thousands fled across the border into neighboring Thailand. The regime disproportionately targeted ethnic minority groups. The Cham Muslims underwent purges with as much as half of their population exterminated. Pol Pot was determined to keep his power and disenfranchise any enemies or potential threats, and thus increased his violent and aggressive actions against his people. Forced repatriation in 1970 and deaths during the Khmer Rouge era reduced the Vietnamese population in Cambodia from between 250,000 and 300,000 in 1969 to a reported 56,000 in 1970-1984. Most of the victims of the Khmer Rouge regime were not ethnic minorities but ethnic Khmer. Professionals, such as doctors, lawyers, and teachers, were targeted. According to Robert D. Kaplan, eyeglasses were as deadly as the yellow star, as they were seen as a sign of intellectualism. Religious institutions were targeted by the Khmer Rouge. The majority of Khmer architecture, 95% of Cambodia's Buddhist temples, were destroyed. Vietnamese occupation and transition, 1978 to 1992. In November 1978, Vietnamese troops invaded Cambodia in response to border raids by the Khmer Rouge and conquered it. The People's Republic of Kampuchea, PRK, was established as a pro-Soviet state led by the Kampuchean People's Revolutionary Party, a party created by the Vietnamese in 1951, and led by a group of Khmer Rouge who had fled Cambodia to avoid being purged by Pol Pot and Tamac. It was fully beholden to the occupying Vietnamese army and under the direction of the Vietnamese ambassador to Phnom Penh. Its arms came from Vietnam and the Soviet Union. In opposition to the newly created state, a government in exile referred to as the Coalition Government of Democratic Kampuchea, CGDK, was formed in 1981 from 3 factions. This consisted of the Khmer Rouge, a royalist faction led by Sihanouk, and the Khmer People's National Liberation Front. Its credentials were recognized by the United Nations. The Khmer Rouge representative to UN, Theun Prasit, was retained, and he had to work in consultation with representatives of the non-communist Cambodian parties. The refusal of Vietnam to withdraw from Cambodia led to economic sanctions. Peace efforts began in Paris in 1989 under the state of Cambodia, culminating 2 years later in October 1991 in a Paris Comprehensive Peace Settlement. The UN was given a mandate to enforce a ceasefire and deal with refugees and disarmament, known as the United Nations Transitional Authority in Cambodia, UNTAC. Thank you for watching my video.